Dan, RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. One of the biggest problems that so many of us have in manifestations is we see what's happening on the outside and we let that affect what we can or can't do, at least what we believe we can or can't do. Maybe there's a third party. Maybe someone else is applying for the job you want. Maybe someone's buying a lottery ticket right in front of you. Maybe someone just bought the scratcher that you were planning on buying. For some reason, we see things in the outside world and we say, well, Dan, I can do this and I can manifest small things and this, that, and the other thing, and self-love's happen, but there's a third party. But something else is happening, but I didn't see my car at the lot that I want. We say everything's going great except this thing that's happening in the outer world. Goddard gets heavily into it in the book, The Power of Awareness, first off. Like, that is just riddled throughout that entire book. If you are reading a book, if you're having a hard time looking at external circumstances and still thinking your dream's possible, The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard is definitely a book worth looking into. He gets very heavily into our consciousness, how we control it, how we don't control it sometimes, and how it controls us. In this particular chapter, he really gets into it. This is chapter 12. It's called Subjective Control. And there's two real key ingredients that come in this chapter. The whole concept of without and within. Two very different things. Without is referring to the outside world, and within is dealing with the inside world. We're going to get into this chapter like now, but I wanted to kind of preface it in that this is probably the single biggest mistake people make when it comes to manifesting. Single biggest mistake. It's not how you're doing the techniques. It's not how you're living throughout the day. It's not how you're living in the end. It is the fact that we will see something in real life, in finger quotes, real, okay? Because there's a thing called no such thing as fiction that Goddard's into, and he talks about how what we see is not necessarily more real than what we imagine. But a lot of us get that wrong. We see something and assume it's correct, and our imagination is wrong. Goddard says, no, it's the other way around. And he's 100% right. Regardless of what it is you're trying to accomplish, I've certainly accomplished a couple things. I brought up radio a bunch, getting that job I got. I had a lot of people tell me no. I had a lot of situations where it didn't seem like it was working out. Ended up at some small 1,000-watt stations, and when you're working at one of those compared to a big station, you're looking around going, what the hell am I doing? It is not looking at what's happening in your real world that's going to change your real world. It's contrast, sure, and we've talked a lot about contrast. So yes, it'll serve for contrast. But how you change your outer world is by affecting your inner world. And if you look at the outer world and say, all hope is lost, then you know you never go back to the inner world. You never spend any time there because you've already given up. And once you've given up, once you've accepted the fact that the outer world is right, then that's what you're going to continue to experience. You're not going to get this inner world chance. So let's see what Goddard has to say about this. Your imagination is able to do all that you ask in proportion to the degree of your attention. All progress, all fulfillment of desire depend upon the control and concentration of your attention. Attention may be either attracted from without or directed from within. Attention is attracted from without when you are consciously occupied with the external impressions of the immediate present. The very lines of this page are attracting your attention from without. Your attention is directed from within when you deliberately choose what you will be preoccupied with mentally. It is obvious that, in the objective world, your attention is not only attracted by, but is constantly directed to external impressions. But your control in the subjective state is almost non-existent. For in this state, attention is usually the servant and not the master, the passenger and not the navigator of your world. There is an enormous difference between attention directed objectively and attention directed subjectively. And the capacity to change your future depends on the latter, which means we must learn to put our attention on things subjectively. So right off the bat, what he's talking about is just there's a lot of outer extended things. There's objective things that happen. What does he call it? External impressions, right? There's external things that happen, like books, that will affect our attention. But when we're sitting still, when we're being mindful of the thing that we're trying to manifest, where is that attention focused on at that point? Is it focused on the external world and maybe how my world is currently void of the thing I want, void of the extra money, void of my new house, void of this better car, void of this better career, void of this specific person or love? When we look at the outer world and say, dang, that ruins everything because I don't have it, we've lost it at that point, because now we're letting the without part influence us. We're letting it guide our thoughts versus saying, yes, contrast-wise, the world on the outside is missing some stuff, so I'm going to go on the inside world within, and I'm going to imagine what it's like to have those things. I'm going to imagine it until I can feel it, a feeling as though the wish is fulfilled already, feeling as though I've got it already. And then from that, my outer world will begin to reflect what is going on in my inner world. When you are able to control the movements of your attention in the subjective world, you can modify or alter your life as you please. But this control cannot be achieved if you allow your attention to be attracted constantly from without. Each day, set yourself the task of deliberately withdrawing your attention from the objective world and focusing it subjective. Okay, right off the bat, we're going to kind of get into defining objective and subjective. Really important for those of you maybe where English is a second language, or certainly in other countries where you don't really speak English at all. These two words are opposites of each other, but they sound very similar, and a lot of times people don't quite understand how they are in context. Objective is someone or something that basically sticks to the facts. It's unbiased. It looks at what's going on in reality and says, all right, this is what's happening. It's able to use statistics. It's able to use actual figures, math, proofs. It's able to look at actual facts and say this is the case. Pointing at the sky and saying the sky is blue. That is an objective thing. Saying that it's a beautiful day is subjective. Subjective is feelings, interpretation. It's influenced by emotion. There's arguments, there's opinions, there's beliefs fall into subjective categories. Looking at your outer world when you're working on manifesting a new outer world and saying that is the objective truth. Looking at the outer world and saying, how could I possibly ever be with this particular person? Because they're not in my outer world right now. You will never, ever manifest something missing in your outer world if you continue to look to your outer world to show you that it's coming. Never. It'll never happen. You must go into your internal world, your within part of yourself, and look at it from a subjective standpoint. You must look at it from a what do I wish to experience? What emotions do I want to have? What made-up scenario do I want to imagine that I want to see pushed out into my physical world? The subjective creates a reality. The objective is a reflection of what happened yesterday. The objective is not what's true tomorrow. The objective is true right now, but that doesn't mean it's true tomorrow. And if we keep looking to the physical universe for evidence that I'm doing the right thing, you're chasing your tail at that point. Because you go internally to create the feelings, the wish fulfilled. And by doing that, it affects the outside world. You go to the inside, you work it there, you feel it there, you have it there. And then eventually stuff starts to happen in the outside world. When we look at the outside world and say nothing is happening because of this, you're already looking at the results of what you were thinking about yesterday and now focusing on that and saying nothing's here. Now you're screwing up your tomorrow because you're focused on the, quote, real thing right now, and that's going to influence your tomorrow. So who cares what's going on in your outside world? It takes great courage, great faith, and great understanding of how law of attraction, how manifestation, how just living works. To be able to go, yes, in spite of everything I see, I still know that I can change that. I still know that I can affect what's going on. I still know that by spending time internally thinking about this, I'm going to make this outer world a reality, this dream come true. So in other words, concentrate on those thoughts or moods which you deliberately determine. Then those things that are now restrict you will fade and drop away. The day you achieve control of the movements of your attention in the subjective world, you are a master of your fate. The day you realize that the subjective world is where all the creation takes place. The objective world is after the effect. It's afterwards. So if it hasn't created yet, no big deal. You're going to create a new day tomorrow. You're going to create a new set of circumstances tomorrow. So if it's not created today, doesn't mean it can't be tomorrow, right? So when we start to control things through our subjective, not control, it's a bad word, when we start to focus on things through our subjective mind rather than the objective mind, we make the biggest step we can in manifesting. The biggest step is by realizing that what I see is not necessarily reality, albeit it's reality right now, but it's not reality tomorrow. It's not my tomorrow. I'm not locked into this particular set of reality. So to continue with Goddard, you will no longer accept the dominance of outside conditions or circumstances. You will not accept life on the basis of the world without. Having achieved control of the movements of your attention, and having discovered the mystery hid from the ages, that Christ in you is your imagination, you will assert the supremacy of imagination and put all things in subjection to it. Goddard's very clear in this chapter. He's very clear in the fact that what we focus on, and it's of course sprinkled throughout the entire book, what we focus on is what we get more of. If you're looking to the outer world as proof, you're going to find yourself focusing on what was yesterday. And if yesterday didn't contain your dream, you're going to find that it's very, very difficult to get things moving in your life. If you realize that what I'm seeing in my objective world is yesterday, and I don't like it, or it's a contrast, then what I do is I go into my inner self, my subjective part, and I imagine, what would I like tomorrow to be like? What is my ideal situation tomorrow? What can tomorrow bring that will be better than today? What can I do to enhance tomorrow? How can I look at what happened today, revise it, imagine it differently, feel it, feeling as though it has already happened, kind of let it go, because you know in your subjective is going to affect the objective. So when I spend time subjectively looking at things, spending time within, I know that tomorrow or an hour later, that my outer world is going to begin to shape this. The last thing I want to touch on is and it's just to try to illustrate the same point one other way. If I keep looking at the objective as a way of feeling better, right? Or feeling like my manifestation's occurring. A lot of us, we want to see signs, we want to see an indication, we want to get a text message from someone, we want that call back for the job. We want to see our car on the lot because that's the one I want to get. When we look at the objective world and let it decide how we're going to feel, when we look at what's happening in the outer world and we say, this is true, sweet, I'm so happy because X is happening, you're going to find that in a lot of cases, sometimes, without a doubt, things are going to work out your way, for sure. And you're going to be happy. And it's going to kind of do this weird backwards self-fulfilling prophecy thing, right? Like my objective is going well, so I'm going to focus on the good things, and then it's going to basically recreate another day of the same, right? So by focusing on a good day of an objective reality, right? It was sunny today, it was wonderful, my person text messaged me, whatever. Randomly out of the blue, everything worked out great. Awesome. What happens on those days where sometimes stuff just doesn't go right? All of us have those days. They happen from time to time. What'll happen on those days where maybe you don't get the text message or some weird sign doesn't happen, now it kind of alters your mood. It affects your mood. You go, it didn't happen today. Shoot. And so what happens at that point is you focus on more of a negative day, and that you take that negative day you've had and you focus on it and you create more negative days. And then you start to get yourself in these cycles of not experiencing things, of having a bad experience, because you keep noticing how you don't have it. Then we get ourselves in depression. Then we get ourselves like, none of this works. None of this stuff's affecting me. None of this works. When in reality, when you come at it from a subjective stance, regardless of what's going on in your outer world, only in that the outer world is a great reflection of how things are going so far. That's kind of how I see it, right? So I spend this time subjectively working on it, feeling it, seeing my dream, feeling it as the wish fulfilled, and then I'll see my outer world start to happen. Now, just because it may not be there yet, I don't let that shoot me down. I know it's coming, right? Or, whatever phrases you got to use, I know it's coming. So I'm looking more out at like, what sort of cool little things are showing me I'm on my way. And even if I don't see anything, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go back and do my subjective work again. I'll be within again, thinking about it, imagining it, and then see what happens on my outer world. What this does differently than the other option where you're looking to your outer world is I create scenarios that make me happy. I'm already happy, right? So the scenarios don't make me happy. I sort of misspoke there, but I'm thinking about things and feeling happy beforehand, and then things happen in life that seem to mimic that. It's all from the standpoint of I know that the chicken comes before the egg versus the egg before the chicken, as the phrase is commonly said, right? Because for those of you that don't understand that phrase, the chicken before the egg, or the chicken or the egg, as they say, how did you get the first egg, right? That's the big question. How did the first egg ever happen, the original egg of the first chicken? Seems kind of awkward because that I don't know. How does that happen? So maybe it was some transition. Maybe it was a duck-billed platypus laid an egg and then somehow a chicken popped out of it. Who knows? Might have been a duck and then ducks turned into chickens. Hard to say. But the fact of the matter is, which one leads to your better reality? As Goddard says, and as I agree, going into your subjective, going into your internal parts of yourself, imagining it, feeling it, being it from there. You will start to see things materialize in the outer world from that point. That's the direction it works. It's not the other way. And when you come at it from that direction, all bets are off because anything's possible at that point. When you come at it from the other direction, you're constantly frustrated. You're frequently noticing things aren't working. You're frequently kind of under the barrage of not seeing things, constantly looking, where's this thing I want? Where's this thing I want? And so you spend a lot of time looking for things in the outer world, when in the other side of it, you spend a little bit of time looking on what's going on the inner side of the world. And that affects the outer world. And you will see it. You will see it. It's when you come from that angle that you notice it comes to the outside world. It's pushed out. It's us pushed out. It's another aspect of how the us pushed out works. It's what's inside of us. I've felt it. I've subjectively been there. I got the feeling. My unconscious self then runs with it and pushes it to the outer world. And then I start to see things. And if it needs a tweaking, then I'll go subjectively inside and tweak it. It's kind of like painting, right? Put a couple colors. Maybe you're mixing some palette and you put it on there and you're like, not quite right. Let me adjust it. So I go back internally. I fix the color. I add a little more red, whatever. Swirl it up, paint it. Yes, now that looks like an autumn day. You have the option to look at what's happening objectively and then go back subjectively, tweak it, and then see what it looks like tomorrow. Do that and then rinse, lather, and repeat. Do that again, do that again, do that again. Keep refining what you're seeing in the real life. Refine it subjectively, refine it internally, and then see what happens the following day. It leads reality. Reality seems funky, start inside, push it out, start to see things change. If it's not perfect, go back to the drawing board, tweak it again, revise it further, and then see what tomorrow holds. Take it from that angle, and you will be amazed at how far and how high and how fast you can fly. Dan RadioStyle.